Your objective today is the students will learn to use the quadratic formula in order to solve quadratic equations. So the main difference from last classes and today is we are solving today, which means we're going to get an x equals. We're using the quadratic formula today, and all of our equations are now set equal to 0. So today we're going to use the quadratic formula, and then next class we'll probably use some different methods to find our x's. So this is page 11 and 12 in your packet. You need to make sure that by the day of the test you're finished pages 1 through 12. So a lot of you will probably finish quadratic formula early. You really need to be working on pages 1 through 12. So I'm just going to go through the front. I'll show you how I typically do these. Your equation always needs to be set equal to 0. You won't have to get anything on one side or the other. It'll always just be set equal to 0 for you. Your a is always in front of the x squared. Your c is always in front of the x. Your b is always in front of the x, and c is with the no variable, the constant term. You won't have to memorize the formula. It'll always be given to you, or you can reference it in your notes. The one main difference I've noticed from algebra and other students is I typically calculate this first, which is your discriminant. I don't put it all in my calculator because sometimes we misplace, hit buttons and it turns into not getting a good answer. So you'll notice on these papers I've always calculated the discriminant first. You don't have to, but if you're getting the wrong answer, I'm going to ask you to. So we have an a of 2, a b of 2, and a c of negative 12. So again, if I go and calculate that discriminant, I'm going to be doing, and I put my b in parentheses, 2 squared, and I always put this in parentheses, minus 4 times 2 times negative 12. And that gets me to 100. It just makes the substituting into the formula a little easier. So then you go and substitute into the formula. X equals the opposite of b, so negative 2, plus or minus the square root of, we now know our discriminant is 100, all over 2 times 2. So it's important to note that this number and that number are all the same. So I've just did the math ahead of time. And then you're going to get two answers. You're going to get x equals negative 2, and I'm going to put this in parentheses, plus 2 over 4, and you're going to get negative 2 minus 10 over 4. And again, the square root of 100 is 10. That's where that 10 came from. So from here, you should get two answers, x equals 2 and x equals negative 3. So if we were to graph this and find the zeros from using our calculator, we would have got x is 2 and x is 3. Okay, so you're going to use this example to help you for the next. And on all of our examples, I believe, we will get a nice perfect square or 0. I want to make a note on 3. We'll see what happens on 3. You're going to get the square root of 0, but that should be, you should be able to do that as well. And 4, you're going to get the square root of a negative. So if you get the square root of a negative, it has no, you won't get no solution. So I would still like to see what you get as your discriminant, but it will have no solution because this discriminant is going to be a negative. All right, and then I will go through number 6 with you. So 6, if you're looking at your numbers, you have 5. And there's no number in front of the x, which means the b term is 0. And your c term is negative 80. And now if we do b squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 80, we get 1,600. So then x equals the opposite of b, which is just going to be 0, because the opposite of 0 is 0, plus or minus the square root of 1,600 over 2 times 5. So this becomes x equals 0 plus the square root of 1,600, I believe, is 40. And you do need to put those in parentheses or do it in 2 different steps on your calculator. So we get 10. And then x equals 0 minus 40 over 10, which we get negative 4. Oh, I need to switch this answer. This is 40 divided by 10, not 4. It is positive 4. So you should get 2 answers for all of these problems.
Mr. Sams, I will unlock Mr. Ash's room now.
You're also, every time you calculate the discriminant, you're going to get a perfect square, so you don't have to worry about rounding. So you shouldn't get any decimals as your answers this time around. You certainly can, but for this portion of the notes, you do not. Okay? So I will be around to help you. If you need help, just let me know. If you're flying through this, please make sure you're also finishing up your packet, as your test is next week and it will be collected.